Today I'm joined by, well, I always start by saying that, even though you can see exactly who I'm talking about. And of course, if you can see who I'm talking about and you're watching a video on a wrestling website, there's a very good chance you know exactly who we're talking about. But it feels rude not to give someone an introduction anyway. And of course, professional wrestler, singer, model, fempreneur, and as we'll discuss later, just a very, very busy lady. Saying that, she's the queen of all trades, so obviously being busy doesn't seem like a chore to her. She's a former Funkadactyl, former star of Total Divas, former WWE Superstar, of course, as well, and she recently appeared on the Deadly Draw, which for anyone who doesn't know, that's All Elite Wrestling's Women's Tag Team Cup Tournament. So let's get down to it. Let's start sipping the tea with former WWE Superstar Cameron, now known as Ariane Andrew. How's it going today, Ariane?
Woo! What an intro. Okay, you included everything. I love that. I'm doing great. Thank you.
And excellent. That's good to hear. And don't worry, because we're going to be including absolutely everything in this interview. It's going to be a whistle-stop tour from wrestling to, you know, film to your fitness app and absolutely everything. So let's just get straight down to it. Your most recent appearance for wrestling fans. I think unless people have been going back and watching a load of your stuff afterwards, which they obviously should be, but if you watch in chronological order, your most recent appearance was in All Elite Wrestling. Now, for many, that may have come as a bit of a surprise, because I don't think many people thought you were still active in the wrestling business. It's been a couple of years since we've seen you. Not that it looked like you'd missed a step, of course, but we need to start by saying, you know, how did that come about? Was that something that you got in touch with them about? Did they get in touch with you? How did you end up working with AEW?
Well, first, before we talk about AEW, I want to talk about a little special guest that we just had come in.
Yeah.
Your little baby back there.
Yeah.
What's his name or her name?
Yeah, she's a little ragdoll kitten called Elsa. But
Elsa.
She always makes a run-in through every single interview that I do just because of what's going on.
We needed that surprise there, right? Okay, so no, but with AEW back in August 2019, I had reached out to Brandy, and I was pretty much just like, hey, if you ever find a way that we can work in some capacity, like, let me know. Pretty much like I'm a phone call away. So then fast forward, it was about less than a week before I found out, she reached out to me and was like, hey girl, so, you know, I said I would keep you in mind. And I was like, oh my God, I started hyperventilating because I'm like, that's not enough time. I'm like, I have no gear. At the time, I'm like, my hair, my weave is not together. I can't go on TV not feeling like I'm 100. I was like, I haven't been in the ring. Oh my God. But decided to make the decision to do that only because it wasn't for fans. It wasn't for management team. It was for myself. And because wrestling scares me so much because of how much, you know, shit that people talk about me. Hopefully I can cuss.
Yeah, of course, feel free.
Okay. Yeah, so because I've always like ruffled people's feathers, I just didn't want to make a return and not feel like I didn't have the preparation. But I was like, you know what, at the end of the day, when you get past what people think, because everyone's going to have an opinion. There's going to be people who love me and there's going to be people who hate me. You're never going to please everybody. So you just have to always do what you feel is best in your heart. Felt it was best in my heart to make it happen no matter how much pressure I felt like there was.
Definitely, and that's the one thing that if you didn't tell me that story, I would have been clueless, because you had fabulous ring gear, you looked like you hadn't missed a step, the production was all there, and everything just looked spot on. But that's the thing there that you mentioned, that, you know, you only found out about it not too far away from when you were doing it. Have you been doing anything wrestling at all related? Have you just been training in terms of general fitness, or had you been, you know, running the ropes or anything beforehand?
So technically speaking, yes and no. I had not stepped in the ring. It almost had been 4 years. I stepped in the ring back in January at Rikishi School. I started training there because I was preparing for my match for Effie's Big Gay Brunch. I only had a few trainings there, and then I had to put a pause because I had so much happening with like my fitness app, things that were just moving, that were in the entrepreneur world, that was taking too much time. But I was like, okay, I feel like at least I'm getting some of the basics. I have a little bit, so if I don't get to get back in the ring, I think I'll be okay. But I was like, you know what, I'll do a little bit more before, you know, the show comes up. COVID happened. and it just put everything on like a halt, a stop. And I had not been in the ring probably since maybe late January, February. So yeah, before that, there had been nothing. So technically speaking, I haven't had a match in 4 years.
Jeez.
So the only thing I had been training was my, my fitness app and working out from home and doing that type of stuff, because I'm a big believer if you do stay ready, you never have to get ready of like a big opportunity happens. I'm not like, oh my God, and I just love working out because it's good for my mental health. So that was the story and how quick everything happened. So I was really not prepared whatsoever.
Like I keep saying, it didn't seem like you were unprepared. So I guess that speaks to yourself as to how well you made everything look, even though it maybe wasn't going on in your head that well. But no, it looked brilliant. And of course, you worked with Nyla Rose, who is also with Vicky Guerrero. You mentioned that you know Brandy quite well as well. And you also worked with Anna Jay and Tay Conti. How was the experience? How was it working with those women? Was there anything that stood out in particular?
I mean, considering I know Anna is fairly new, I know Tay didn't really have much time in NXT. It was one of those type of things where I think even though, AEW have put that dynamic together, I don't know if people were really expecting much given how everybody was kind of paired. But working with them was so amazing. I mean, besides the finish, we never got a chance to work on any of the moves. So that also was scaring me because I was like, fuck, like, the timing with certain stuff, you got to make sure the timing's correctly. So that was really scary too, not knowing like if certain moves, and there was a few hiccups. So obviously if we would have been able to practice, it would have been a lot better. But, it's a part of the journey. And as much as I'm a perfectionist, sometimes in life you just have to like surrender and say, you know what, it's not going to be perfect, because if anybody was perfect in this life, we'd be superhuman. So even though I like to think I'm superhuman, but working with them was fun. I was very interested at first when Brandy told me I was going to be with Nyla, because I was like, that's interesting, because we have such different characters. Like, she's a beast, she's the dominating, I'm sassy, my whole thing is my personality and my gimmick. So I was very interested how that was going to work, but the cards fell how they, as they should.
Yeah, definitely. It was, and I keep saying it, but it was really enjoyable for me to watch, as was something else that I watched you in recently, which we're going to get into a little bit more in detail later, but there's one question that came up from it that I need to ask, of course, and that was a little podcast in which you spoke to Naomi, and she turned the microphone on you, whereas you were meant to be asking the questions. She asked you some questions, one of which was, are you signed to AEW? Are you a free agent? I know at that time you said you were not signed. Is that still the case? And is there any, will you be back in a ring at any time soon?
I'm going to put it like this. Wherever my home is meant to be will be. I always say, watch this space, because without saying too much, I'm going to say, you'll definitely see my ass back in the ring. But where? I don't know. I'm not going to be spilling the tea of that. I think I like the fun of just like how I made my appearance back. It shocked everybody. It was the last thing they were ever expecting. And because I feel like I'm such a controversial person, not because I choose to be, it's just how the wrestling internet community feels about me is just very strongly opinionated. Watch this space. And regardless if you love or hate me, at least I have a passion and that I was willing to come back even though I get so much hate, and that takes a lot because I'm still human. And when you hear people say mean things, it can be hurtful. But I don't care because I love what I do. So when you love what you do, you can't worry about the outside noise.
That's definitely very true. And the one thing I love there is you mentioned that you did manage to keep it a surprise, which is not something that happens in wrestling a lot now.
Never.
Those surprises are always given away, and this one wasn't. So that was really, really nice to see. You mentioned it there that, sometimes you might come across as superhuman. I think to the outside world, you definitely do if people know what ventures you've been doing, which is, we need to start with the simple question, how do you find the time?
How do I what?
How do you find the time to do everything?
How do I find the time? Sometimes, I have to take a step back because, my boyfriend tells me I overwork myself. I have such a go-getter mentality, a relentless mentality. You tell me no, or you tell me I can't do something. And I think that's why too, when it comes to wrestling, it makes me push harder because I'm determined to prove you wrong. You wrong, but also myself. Like, I'm more capable of what I can give myself credit for. It does get very hectic. It does get very busy with everything that I have going on. But luckily, unfortunately, with COVID, obviously, I don't want people dying and for the world to be in a chaos like it is. But it's giving me time to, take a step back and not go so 100, because then I'm finding out in life, like, what's really important. You can have all these things you do, you can have all the money, all these great things, but what does that mean if you're not sharing it with, like, the people you love and being present and enjoying, just like saying, wow, I'm just so happy right now that I get an opportunity to sit here and tell my story and talk to you, which that's more important than me going and spending, like, countless hours on something, because this is important right now. So it definitely can become taxing, but I think, during this time of 2020, it's taught me, like, when it's 12 at night, shut it off. Don't work until 4 or 5 in the morning. That's, like, find a time when you have to, like, have a hard debt, like, I'm stopping here. If it's not done, it's okay. I can pick it back up. It's not life or death.
I think that is definitely an important lesson for everyone. And I know that you're on the severe end of the scale where you do a lot, but no matter what you do, that's definitely a good lesson for people. That said, you mentioned that you don't always need to be at 100. I think right now you're probably still somewhere around a 99 in terms of the stuff you're doing. The one thing that for me really stood out, Jaded Pictures, which, you've done a lot on, you co-wrote it, executive producer, and of course you were the lead role in it. Even for anyone that just sees the trailer of that, it's 1 minute, 2 minutes long. For me, the one thing that stood out is you are an actor in that. You are brilliant. At that first, 2 minutes, I was like, this is insane. So the
Thank
thing
you.
that I need to, no problem at all. The one thing that I need to ask, acting, is that something you had any kind of experience of before? Is it something wrestling helped with? And either way, just how much of a passion is it for you, or how much is it something you really want to do going forward?
I've always had a passion for acting. I guess you say more entertaining. I love entertaining people. People think acting is easy. Actually, before my release happened, I had started taking acting classes because I had this big game plan of when I was going to come back, like what I was going to do. I wanted to make sure that I was even more solid on the microphone because you are live. So I started taking classes because I always feel like you need to be perfecting your craft. You need to be watching things back. You need to be studying. You need to study other people that you feel is a good influence, because that's the only way you're going to get better, is if you really practice and, try to find ways of how can I get better and always evolve. So I had started taking class back then. I mean, I loved acting. I do have an agent for, auditions for my commercial and theatrical. So obviously when WWE did come to a halt, I was doing that full time. Took a break off because I decided to go create my own film. And that requires so much time and dedication. There was one time I was having a panic attack because I do suffer from anxiety. And I remember thinking, because it was the first one I ever had. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm about to have a heart attack. Come to find out I was having a panic attack because of how much stress goes into like creating something like that. But I wouldn't take it back for the world because I learned so much. So yeah, acting and entertaining has always been a thing before, WWE was, ever even a thing for me.
It just meant that you had that head start with the acting classes to go forward from there. But yeah, I mentioned acting as the obvious standout because that's the thing that, you're watching, you can see that it's Ariane on TV, you get everything instantly. From that, you were also writing, producing, you did mention that you were doing a lot. Is that something that you just decided, well, I might as well do everything? Or is it something that you always, had a hand in, like the creative side of it? I know acting is creative, but the writing, the producing side of it as well, is that something you just always wanted to do?
No, so I never even thought I was capable of being able to write or produce. And I think that, like I say a lot of times, and what I just said before, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We spend so much time figuring out why we can't get something done than why we can. And we are so, like, I just finished listening to the audiobook, How to Unfuck Yourself.
Yeah.
Because our minds play like the biggest trick on us. Think about it. Said something so crazy that we are all wired to win, because we will find, if you have a whole dirty dishes, right? You have not one bowl, one spoon, you will figure out how to go get a wooden spoon with like with a plastic container and eat out of it. So it's like you figured it out. So why can't we take that same mindset of the negative and say, I'm going to figure out for the positive no matter how hard it is? So I never thought I would be able to do that, but I did. And it's like, again, for me, it's like I never want any of my dreams to live at the cemetery. Some people have so many dreams, but are just so scared because they don't want to fail. And the thing is, you're going to fail, but instead of saying you failed, it's just saying I'm trying again with a new mindset, with more experience than what I had before. Because if anyone tells you it's overnight, no, there is no shortcut to success. The key to success, the ingredient, is just do the fucking work. Do the work and just keep going and be resilient. Like, that's just, that's what it's about.
I absolutely love that saying of not letting your dreams live at the cemetery. That is like one of my favourite sayings ever. So yeah, we mentioned it before that we've mentioned the wrestling, we've mentioned everything you do in terms of film, and we mentioned a little bit of something earlier, which was the Sipping the Tea podcast, which we did mention. Of course, Naomi was on the most recent one. She turned the microphone on yourself. You've just celebrated 100 episodes of that. So I think that's the kind of thing. A lot of people have, a lot of different things on the go. But if you get to 100 episodes of something, you're pretty serious about it. That's the kind of thing that, it's not just a phase if you're going through 100 episodes. You did have Naomi on as the most recent guest, which, if anyone hasn't listened, that is the one that I started listening to, then working my way back. So definitely go do that. But Naomi is someone you're, of course, very close to. At least you were on screen from what everyone could see. What do you think of Naomi as a person and as a performer?
I said it even on Sipping the Tea. Naomi is someone who really inspires me. I may be, a few weeks older than her, but I've always looked at her as like my big sister. She was always kind of like my guiding light of always wanting to make myself want to evolve to be a better person. You know what I mean? Like, Naomi is very non-problematic. She gets along with everybody. She's super gifted. She's so talented. So she's such a great human being. And I feel like it's so hard to find people like that, because when you are so talented, you've been doing something for so long, have so much skin in the game, you could easily be, cocky. And what I love about her is that she's never changed. She's always been the same person since I met her from day one. And I feel like that's why I love her so much, because I won't say any names. There's people I did know in WWE that they've changed. It's like they got success, and it's like, I don't know who you are, or I'm like, let's do this charity event together. And they're like, oh, let me talk to my team. And I'm just like, damn, well, what happened to the friendship we used to have? Like, is that where we're at? We're even for charity. We're talking about a team. I'm like, you shouldn't even have to be talking about your team when it comes to charity. Like, charity is like giving back. So for her to still like be that person, it's amazing. So I just hope that before her career is done, that she gets what the fuck she deserves, because she really, if anyone deserves it, it's her. Not just because of her talent, but because of the person she is. I feel like that's a huge difference of being talented but being an asshole. She's talented but so fucking sweet and so just an inspiring person.
Yeah, and that's you got to my question before I even said it there, which was going to be, have you seen the Naomi Deserves Better hashtag? But from what you just said, I guess you have, and I guess you agree somewhat with it. But,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no matter what happens, I think deep down inside, especially getting that validation, which as much as we don't we should not ever be validated by other people. I think for her, it was good because now she at least knows no matter what happens in her career that she's doing what she needs to do and she's on the right path, because obviously people, like the fans, will make or break your life. So at least for her, it's positive, and it's like, it's something that she should be like, okay, maybe I may have been thinking like, am I this? Am I that? Am I good enough? But now I can be like, you know what? I'm doing what I need to do and I'm on the right path.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the kind of thing that it's always just nice to feel appreciated, if nothing else. So it's nice that, you know, you get that little bit of validation. But you mentioned that you hope that before her career's done, she gets what she deserves. Mm-hmm. That, for me, I don't really know if I would classify it as a missed opportunity yet, because it's not happened yet. So we can't say it's a missed opportunity before it doesn't happen. But that's the next question I had for you was, obviously yourself and Naomi in WWE were part of the Funkadactyls. Do you feel like there was a missed opportunity there? Do you feel like there's more that could have been done? Or do you just think maybe it wasn't right and it ran its course?
I definitely think it was a missed opportunity, because I'm going to toot my own horn for our horn for a second. Beep, beep. Even though it's tied to wrestling, but it wasn't in the ring. I mean, we had the highest rating of all time on Total Divas. Like, people really liked us together. So I don't care what you want to say. Like, numbers don't lie, you know? And that Planet Funk is Funked Up was the highest rated episode with 1.3 million views. And you look at that, and I feel like you looked at our dynamic of what we had. There was so much more that could have been done. Even when we did our, you know, breakup, like, it was so dry. It was like, boom, this happened. And it was just like, it was over, where people wanted to see more. Because we did build such just cool dynamic, and it was very different. It's something you never had seen before. I definitely feel, you know, I would love for us to make history and have the tag team titles and be the first, you know, Black tag team women to have that. You know what I mean? I feel like that would set the tone for so much, you know, to say, like, doesn't matter your background, any of this, like, you know, when you're resilient, focused, and driven, the sky has no limits. And if that happens, great. But if it doesn't, I will always just love the time that we have, and be like, no matter what, in a sense, we still made history, because I didn't even realize until my co-host said it on the 100th episode of Sippin', Matt. He was like, you guys were the first, you know, like, Black women's like tag, you know, like, you guys were the you know, first tag team to ever be like Black women. And I was like, I didn't even realize that. I was like, I didn't even realize we had already kind of made history. But I'm trying to really make history and get them titles.
Yeah, that is something that would have definitely been, you know, or as a missed opportunity. It didn't happen. Hopefully in the future, that's the only thing that I'll say there. Hopefully in the future, that's still a possibility. But yeah, you mentioned it earlier as well, with people getting so caught up in one moment or one thing. I think you addressed this moment perfectly anyway, and I remember it 5 years ago when you addressed it on Twitter, the pinfall incident where you tried to pin someone who was on their front, which I don't see the problem with it anyway, but everyone still brings it up. No matter what you done ever in the ring after that, that's the one moment that some people just wouldn't let go of. Is that something that still bothers you, or is that part of your mindset where you mentioned earlier, you know, you just need to prove people wrong anyway?
Yeah, you know, it's about proving people wrong. And I fucked up. Jesus Christ, I fucked up. Woo, for everyone listening, I fucked up. Stuff happens. Like, shit happens. You know, at the time I got flustered because I think they had called more time. And I remember practicing, trying to do something different, where I would split on her back, and just being so caught up in the moment, like, I didn't even realize. It's like, yeah, no fucking shit, duh, I know you pin people on their back. But it's like, how is it that people who, you know, there's other people who can make that same exact mistake and never get shit for it, but for some reason, if I make the smallest fuck up, it was always just like, let me ridicule her. Why can't you say, like, okay, you fucked up, cool, let's move on? It's like, it's old, like, it's so old now. But honestly, like I said, I have had time to be away for 4 years, that, like, I've become so comfortable in my skin. Like I said, you're never going to please everyone. So as long as I know in my heart, like, what I've done, how I've moved forward, there's nothing else I can do. Like, like me or hate me. Like, don't watch it then. And like, you know, or like, keep the comment to yourself. Like, don't come to me and, you know, talk shit. Like, it takes, like, life is already crazy. So you're going to sit here and like harbor on a moment that's so old. It's like, I get it. I'm like, let me ask people out there, have you ever made a fucking mistake? If you say no, you're a liar. We've all made mistakes before. We all have. It's about acknowledging it, saying I fucked up, and then you move on. Like, it is what it is.
And the fact that people will hold on to something from 5 years ago, no matter what else you do, they still hold on to that moment. It's like, it takes a lot more energy to hold on to that moment rather than to let it go for a start. But you know,
but it's totally fine because that means people are still talking about me. People are talking about you. You're doing something right, even sometimes when it's negative. It's like, that obviously bothered people so much. You're still talking about it 5 years later. Like, so good job to me. I'm going to just look at it as a positive, okay?
Yeah. And I can end it by saying, you know, as someone who watches about 12 hours of wrestling every week, I see a lot more serious mistakes than that every single week, and obviously people get away with it.
Exactly.
But you mentioned earlier, you know, you weren't particularly ring training. You weren't training to be back in the ring as much as maybe people would expect someone to. But I know that you've been training a lot recently because you have your own fitness app. So, of course,
Yes.
You've been doing a lot of training to get, you know, or at least to stay in shape before getting in the ring. Man, it's the kind of thing that you mentioned it earlier. Fitness for people can just be something that doesn't just help physical health, but also mental health. Can get people through a lot, can help them through a lot, both physically and emotionally. And I believe it's called, is it AA Academy or AA Academy?
Yeah, it's AA Academy for my name, Ariane Andrew. Yep. I made that app. It's something I actually feel like I manifested because I've been talking about AA Academy now for 4 years and how I wanted to have like the school of life, like the school of getting not only in physical shape, but mental shape. A big thing about me too is like not only being an entertainer, I love to be able to figure out what am I doing to leave a positive impact. And you know, when this app was created, I wanted to do something different that hadn't been done, which is also include mental health. So to make a long story short, like even right now with the pandemic, you can get the app through Tribe, which is, you know, I'm all about like you're coming to have a tribe, people who can support each other, especially because in a time like this, things get very difficult. So it's on Google Play, it's on Apple, and you get like 4 free workouts to try the app to see if it's something that you even like. And then even now it's like I offer it for $9.99 a month, which I wanted to make it very reasonable. But again, still giving people free workouts. That way they didn't feel like I have to make a commitment and not know, especially at a time like this. And a portion of the proceeds goes to help during the pandemic. So for me, it was all about, you know, health and wellness, but finding a way for me to give back and help people. Because I feel like that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone needs, you know, any kind of vindication that it works, then they just have to watch you in that AEW match, because if you weren't properly training for an in-ring return, then man, actual stamina and fitness obviously helped you through that match.
Yeah.
That's you know, proof it works, if nothing else. And we've mentioned it, you know, wrestling, and then, you know, producer, writer, actor, fitness, you know, everything. Not content with that, you're also starting your own customized keychain business next week, or launching it next week, I believe.
It's actually, I mean, I want to say it's going to be this week. I'm learning to like not put hard dates on stuff because then you disappoint yourself. But it's tentatively, it's going to launch this week. The concept came up. It's called Label My Keys, where because I'm so into health and wellness, I was hiking a few times and there were people who lost their keys. I remember picking up the keys and I was like, do they have like a name or a phone number or something? I was like, oh my God, does that exist? So then that's how it was created. Lost your keys, not if we label them. So it's like, you know, you can get a customized keychain where it has like your name, your phone number, and your email address. And right now, because it's the grand opening, we're offering 33% off plus free shipping just for the US. It's a bit much. We haven't expanded, you know, globally, but for right now it's in the US. And yeah, so that's super exciting. Just so many great things, even Jaded Pictures. People stay tuned for that because we're talking about turning that into a TV series, which why I love Jaded Pictures. It wasn't just about, I don't know if I touched on this before, but it wasn't just about creating something because I'm an actor. It was about creating something that everyone can relate to, which, let me ask you, have you ever compared your life to someone else on Instagram?
I think everyone has. I think absolutely everyone on the planet has. So that's something everyone can relate to.
Exactly. So we created that short film because we're all looking at other people's life, wishing that we could have that when you don't really know what's happening behind the scene. And the saying is, for this film, when you live for the camera, you die behind the scenes. And we tied that also into mental health, especially because I see a therapist every Wednesday because I suffer from anxiety and slight depression, and it's something that I've always kind of battled with. And, about 4 years, I finally came out of like saying, I see a therapist, and we wanted to tie that in and how important it is, like how that can affect mental health so much. So we like tied it in with Naomi. And that's why that's also so passionate for me, because it's not only just a film, it's a film with a message in a very creative way of what we all deal with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's the kind of thing that, it comes across as a kind of representation thing where you're like, well, I want to see myself on the screen, so why not just put myself on the screen? And that is the thing that, always brings the best stories when people can relate to them. Just like you mentioned there with the keys, it's like, who hasn't lost keys? Everyone has lost keys.
Who hasn't lost keys? Everything that I create has a value aspect to it. It's not because I'm like, let me just do something because I love myself, or it's like, no, what can I do to help other people? It's always like, in my mind, the fitness app is to help people get strong mentally and physically. The keychains is so people can never lose their keys. The film is to say, love the skin that you're in, because you're looking at someone else's life when you don't even know what the hell's going on. Like, for all you know, they hate their life and you're wishing you had that. Just love what you have and be okay with that. Sipping the tea brings value because we bring on entrepreneurs, reality TV stars, musicians, for them to share their story about how they got there, what advice would they give for someone who's in that particular field. So that brings value because we bring the best of the best to give advice on, like, you host, you're a journalist. We bring on those type of people because then now you can look at that person and say, I want to know their story, because all you see is what's on Instagram. You just see highlight reels. So it's cool when you're able to like break it down where someone can just fully be themselves, So everything that I do is, in my Escape with AJ podcast, it's talking about interracial dating. It's talking about marriage, animals, COVID, all these things that people deal with, on a day-to-day basis. Even if you're not in an interracial relationship, if you're in a relationship, if you're going through mental health, it literally covers everything. So everything that I do, it's not just for the sake of doing it. It's literally to provide as much value. And if I can do it for free, I want to give it for free.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the kind of thing that it's either giving a snippet of someone's life or at least letting you understand more about what other people go through, which is always something that everyone should be trying to do anyway in every walk of life. I've got one last question. Hopefully this one doesn't intrude too much on the question I asked earlier, so we'll kind of define it a little bit so you're not giving away anything at all, because I know you wouldn't give away anything anyway, so I'm not even going to try. Ending on a wrestling question. If Ariane could only step foot in a wrestling ring for one more match, what would that match be?
If it was my last match?
Yeah, if you could only set foot in the ring for one last match.
It would have to be with Naomi, for sure. Because I am always about how I want to start a journey is how I want to end it. Like, perfect example is with, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I started my career with him on Tough Enough, and he was the first person I talked to after I left. So it's like I started my career with him, and it's like, I don't want to say ended, but when that moment in WWE ended, I wanted to share that with him, So same. It's like I started my career, of course, with Brodus as well, but I would love to be able to share the ring with her. And if that means tagging, cool. If that means having a match against her, I would love to. If that was my last match ever, I would want it to be like that.
Hopefully we see another couple hundred matches and then that match at the end. But hopefully that happens, because that would be wonderful. Stick Naomi can have Brodus in her corner, you can have Stone Cold in your corner, and that will book in everything nicely. I think that would be the way to do it. But yeah, I know you're a very busy lady, because we've went through absolutely everything you've done. Of course, everyone who's watched this, either we'll have the links in the YouTube video as well anyway, but if not, then we'll be on Sportskeeda Wrestling. The full interview will have absolutely everything that Ariane's doing embedded throughout the tweet. So if you go on there and read that, you'll see everything anyway. But yeah, thank you so much, Ariane. It's been an absolute pleasure for me, and hopefully the rest of your day is great as well.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And make sure you guys follow me across the board at Ariane Andrew. That's where I have everything happening.
That is the place to go. That's the place where you'll see absolutely everything. So thanks again for watching, and thanks to Ariane for taking the time.
Thank you. Girl, bye.